This is Susan Manning from Learning Times, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to our final webinar in the Connecting to Collections series. And today, I'm always excited when we do one of these to see who's coming in from where, everywhere from Phoenix to Alaska. And you're introducing yourselves quite well. You'll use that same chat area as we work through our webinar today to ask our presenters questions and to leave comments that we can follow up on then toward the end of the event. If for some reason you find yourself in need of technical assistance, I hope that you will feel free to email us at that address. Be very specific so we can help you out. And after the fact, you can come back and review this archive or others from the previous sessions. And to do that, just follow through that website, the same one that you came in to register. And you'll find copies of the slides. They will be available from today, as well as the other webinars earlier in the series. And right now, I am going to introduce you to Bob Beatty from AASLH, and Bob's going to continue with our welcome.
Well, welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you here, some of you in very, very frigid and cold places, and some of you in my former home state of Florida. We're very excited to have you here. If you notice, we're just asking you a couple questions as we get started. Where are you from, and then what type of institution do you represent? Just gives us a little bit of an idea on who's coming from where and from which type of institution, gives the presenters a chance as well. ASLH has been involved with the Connecting to Collections initiative for almost, or I guess, over 3 years now, and it's very exciting that we've been able to be a part of it, along with Heritage Preservation and, of course, our good friends over there at IMLS. And real quick, let us know how many people are joining you together. We typically, a lot of folks participate solo, and then we get smaller groups of people in smaller groups there. So we appreciate that very much. Thanks, everybody, for letting us know from where you come, and appreciate that very much. And ASLH has been so proud to be a part of this. And one of the, if not the linchpin for this entire program is Nancy Rogers, Special Assistant to the Director, Office of Strategic Partnerships at IMLS. And Nancy has become a good friend, a fantastic colleague, and just an absolute delight to work with, and a warrior for the cause of Connecting to Collections. So, Nancy, we will turn it over to you to do your magic and welcome people. But ASLH has been very pleased to be a part of this with you and with Heritage Preservation, this last of the Connecting to Collections webinars at this point.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. At least it's good afternoon where I am. This is Nancy Rogers. I've had the pleasure and privilege of coordinating Connecting to Collections, a call to action, over the last 4 years. It's been a huge initiative. Underneath all those polls, you can see the cover of our recent report on the initiative, which was based on the appalling statistics uncovered by the Heritage Health Index back in 2005. I, too, want to thank our partners, but including Learning Times, who have all of our partners have been absolutely splendid on this project. And in fact, the project has been so successful, culminating in these webinars where we've had such a strong response, that we are planning to continue a kind of online Connecting to Collections family in the future. And you should be hearing something about that perhaps in January. Everybody who has participated will learn. I think Susan's going to pull up a poll right now asking you if you have been part of Connecting to Collections, and we're very interested to see whether you have or whether you have not. And if you haven't, you have now, because you are part of our family. And I'm going to move on to the next slide to show you the URL where you can go to see this report or to get there's a hot link there that you can go to right away, hyperlink rather, and I hope that you will do so that you can have a clearer picture of all the resources that are available to you about connecting collections care. This is a slide on IMLS purpose and goals. I'm not going to go into that just to tell you that there are 3 critical goals for the IMLS, and this Connecting to Collections meets all of them and is important to all of them. And Susan, if you'd put up the next poll, which lets us know what part of Connecting to Collections you have participated in, if you have. As you can see, almost 75% of you, 79, is that it, have participated. Now we want to find out how you have participated. And this slide tells you all of the different components of the initiative, and including the statewide planning and implementation grants, which if you haven't joined yet, I hope you will. And I'm going to be checking to see what percentage of you have participated in the statewide planning and implementation grants. The map that is up here underneath this poll also shows where Connecting to Collections has taken place. Now, when we update this map, we'll be putting all of our webinar attendees on it. So the map's going to be filled out much more completely than it is right now. The initiative is almost over. These webinars and the ongoing online community will be the last major facets of the project. But the resources are going to be there for you for a long, long time, and I hope you will go online to our website and look at the Guide to Online Resources, for example, which is an excellent resource for you. So let's just finish this with the thought about IMLS anyway. We're going to move on to our presenters here, and here's my great friend Kristen Laise from Heritage Preservation, who is going to lead this webinar. Kristen is the Vice President for Collections Care at Heritage Preservation, Collections Care Programs, and she directed the Heritage Health Index. She has been so important to this bookshelf project, both in selecting the text and in writing the questions in the back of the user's guide. If you don't have the user's guide, it's available online too, and I hope you will get it. Our commentators today are, I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. I don't know how to get rid of that. They'll just go away. We have 3 commentators for this project, for the webinar today. Julie Page from California. She coordinates the California Preservation Program and the Western States and Territories Preservation Assistance Service. And she is an expert on disaster preparedness and preservation education, especially in libraries. Our second presenter, well, it's not going that way. Our second expert is Jean-Louis Bigourdan. He's a research scientist at the Image Permanence Institute at the Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. And he is an expert in photography, conservation of photographic materials. And Mary Jo M.J. Davis is an art and paper conservator in private practice in Vermont. She has a private conservation lab. She's freezing up there. And she is also a surveyor for CAP, for the Conservation Assessment Program, and has worked with all kinds of institutions. So those are our experts today, and I'm now going to turn it over to Kristen Laise.
Thank you so much, Nancy. This is Kristen Laise from Heritage Preservation. Hope that any people having audio issues, hope it's better, but certainly just put in the chat if you're having any problems. But today we're going to be focusing in on the bookshelf that Connecting to Collections prepared, and specifically how it can help you with the care of paper, photographs, and audiovisual materials. The bookshelf, as Nancy was mentioning, was our attempt to get authoritative texts and other resources literally, physically on a bookshelf in the hands of, I think it was over 3,000 institutions across the country. We particularly wanted to help small to mid-sized museums and libraries and historical societies and archives who, are busy. Everyone's busy with their institutional responsibilities, and you sometimes don't have a lot of time to do a lot of research on these issues. And so we wanted to give you those texts at your fingertips so that you would have the information you need to do your job as best as you can. Today we're going to just give you a bit of a boost. It looked like when we polled you just a few minutes ago that a lot of you have received the bookshelf, about 2/3, and we're going to review the text, give you some tips on how you can quickly find information in them, give you some information on some other resources that came out of the project, and then we'll have a chance to talk with our 3 experts. and point you to some additional information sources. So, but just some background, how do we get from just the hundreds and hundreds of books and websites all about conservation down to a nice, tidy set for your bookshelf? Well, first thing we did was we polled about 66 conservators, archivists, collections care professionals, and we asked them for their recommendations. Then we brought together a group of about 6 experts and asked them to really narrow down the list. And then IMLS made the final choices. We also had 4 experts consulting with us on some of the texts just to do with living collections, because they are a different set of needs than paper and photographs and paintings and archives and artifacts. So this is the list of sort of the core collection that over 3,000 people received, and then a group of additional texts for people who are more artifact collections based, and then a set for people who are at museums that have living collections, zoos, aquariums, botanical gardens, etc. So imagine all these super texts, but wait, there's more. We actually wanted to do some additional resources to make this an even easier thing to use, and so we made this bookshelf user's guide, and we're going to take a look into that in a few minutes. But that sort of guides you all through all of the text, gives you a quick summary on them, and then we went to also online resources. I mean, some topics it was very challenging to find a book that really gave you the up-to-date information on preservation. Digital preservation is an excellent example of that, and so online resources are really going to be the preferred resource, and so we wanted to pull everything together. There's lots of also great resources online, and so we've done all that hard work for you. We've chosen resources that are from reputable places, and we've put them all in a sort of well-organized place on the IMLS website, and we'll be going through that in a minute too. So where are all these bookshelves now? Again, this is the map that Nancy showed, and it's all these red dots. And this website on IMLS can point you to exactly where those places are, because if you don't have the bookshelf, you might want to contact one of your colleagues in your area to see if that's something you can borrow. In fact, I'd like to do a poll quickly, since it did seem like we had about 2/3 of people on this call did have the bookshelf. If we could just, Susan, do the poll on if you have a bookshelf, would that be something you'd be willing to share with your colleagues in your local area? So there's a couple. There's also online resources, as I've noted here, and again, the archived version of this PowerPoint. All these links will be active hyperlinks, so you'll be able to do some. These are the resources that are on the bookshelf that are also free and available online, and there are a few others as well. So it looks like a lot of you would be willing to share your bookshelf, and I have on the next slide just some ideas on how you might consider doing that. Some groups have already started sort of a book club where staff volunteers from other organizations in your area could get together monthly, maybe over a brown bag lunch or something, and someone could look into the bookmark carefully and present it to the rest of the group. If you're in a library, you could potentially put your bookshelf in your reference collection so that it would be easy and available to members of your community. We certainly want you to use it too, so we sort of think maybe it shouldn't go in the circulating collection. You'd hate for them to get lost. But in the reference collection, maybe that's a great place where people can have access to them, and you can keep them for yourself as well. And then perhaps the bookshelf is a catalyst to develop other collaborations or other get-togethers among your cultural institutions in your area. And you can develop other cooperative supply buying or exhibits or events or any other types of creative ideas like that. So this, again, is the Bookshelf User's Guide that we developed, just a quick reference to help you sort of tackle all these thick books on your bookshelf. And I just want to quickly poll if you've used the User's Guide, and if so, actually, Susan, I'm sorry. Let's do the poll first on how often people are using their bookshelf, and then we'll poll again on how often people are using the User's Guide. Okay, this looks like a little bit similar to the poll we did in our last bookshelf webinar. It seems like most people are just sort of occasionally picking it up. And in fact, I have a follow-up question on this. If you're just using it occasionally or rarely, sort of why that is. Do we have that poll question? Susan's just going to be dragging that in.
Sorry, I was talking to you and I had myself muted.
Oh, that's okay.
But here's the question for everyone.
Yeah, this is what we also found the last time. It's hard. I mean, you're busy, and it's even though we've given you a nice succinct group of books, even just trying to find something in them or take some time to browse through them, do some research of your own in them, it's kind of hard to fit that in. So we understand that. We're hoping that today's webinar is going to just help jumpstart that process for you a bit. Okay. Susan, let's close these polls and then just bring in the question about how often people are using the User's Guide. When we developed the User's Guide, that was our goal, that for the occasional user or the user who might only access, use those books on a rare basis, that maybe the User's Guide could be sort of that gateway that helps you find information quickly. It's a bit of an index. We organized it so it has a set of frequently asked questions in the back. So it looks like a handful of you are using it at least occasionally, that's great. Well, let's just take a look at one of those FAQs as an example. So, for example, you want to replace poor quality storage enclosures and boxes with improved materials. Which of the resources on the bookshelf are going to have the most and the best information on that topic? I think one of the best ones is the Museum Handbook for Collections through the Park Service. This is an example of one of the resources that was in the bookshelf, but it's also free and available online. And this is what their website looks like. And you can, I've tried to zoom in a bit. It's a bit fuzzy, I'm sorry. But you can download that whole PDF, the whole handbook, and then that's a searchable PDF. You can look, specifically for topics that you are interested in, say in this case storage. And then they also have appendices. So to dealing with the topics we're talking about today, you can get to some pretty direct information specifically on types of collections. And even though this was a handbook that was developed for National Park Service sites, it contains excellent information, and it's useful for everybody. I mean, we all hold these types of collections in our institutions, and so, what was developed for the federal government winds up being really useful for all of us. So that's a terrific resource and available for free, and that's that website for that. They also, online, you can also download a quick reference, and this is a really thorough index on every single topic that you'll find in the handbook. So I think that's a great place to find some quick information. And then Jean-Louis will be speaking some more about this later, but again, back to our FAQ on storage, this is another great resource specifically to do with photographs and audiovisual materials, tape and CDs and DVDs, etc. It's relatively short handbook, spiral bound. If you got it on your bookshelf, that's what it looks like. But again, the PDF is available online. So if you didn't get the bookshelf or you want to share this with a colleague, that's an excellent way to go. If you do have the hard copy, though, you do get this nice wheel, and that's a great quick resource for information. You look up the type of material CDs and DVDs, for example. Here I've got the pointer. And then the issues that you might wind up having if they're not stored correctly, recommendations for temperature, humidity, and some recommendations on the type of storage that you might consider for it. So Jean-Louis will get into that in a little bit more detail in a minute. Another one I'd point out for this topic, especially when we were thinking about our FAQ on storage, a new publication, relatively new, from the Society of American Archivists. They published this book, and it was written by conservators, and they have a great section on preservation and storage materials for photographs. So let's turn now to the Guide to Online Resources. We're going to ask a poll here about whether you've used the Guide to Online Resources. And that's found through the Connecting to Collections webpage on the IMLS site. Okay, it looks like we'd love for it to become a weekly and monthly habit, that you would feel confident that that had good information that that you could find quickly, and we'd love for you to bookmark it. It looks like right now, sort of rarely, and even a lot of people saying never. Why is that? Let's ask another question that just sort of gets, maybe we can zero in on why you haven't used it or haven't used it more often. So I think it's just a difference. Again, people are busy, don't have time to sometimes delve into these things, even though they're there. Or, you forgot it's there, and that's true, too. There's so much information on the Internet, it's easy to forget it. Or you haven't heard of it, and this is the first you're hearing about it, and that's great. We will, in the chat, I can put in the URL, the direct URL, so that you can, if you haven't already downloaded it or, bookmarked it, I'm going to put it right here in our chat, so you can do that now, and this will also be in our archive of this webinar. Great. So we can clear those polls. I'll just give you a quick tour, and actually, Susan, I'm going to go live online here just to tinker around in it. Okay. I think everyone will find it's fairly straightforward, but I'll just give you a quick tour of some of the topics we cover. And here we are. So if you just go, so I want to go back to the main screen. This is our opening screen that you'll see. And so let's still thinking about, you've got a question about the best way to manage your collections environment, what your storage question was. You click on Manage Your Environment. You can get general information about air quality, light, temperature, relative humidity, storage. Let's just click on temperature and relative humidity, and these are a list of resources. This is one I brought up earlier. Preservation leaflet from the Northeast Document Conservation Center. Now, their webpage is full of great information. It's a great place to browse on its own, but at the same time, if you are short on time, or you really want to get to some targeted information coming through this Connecting to Collections site, you can use our indexes and get to information very quickly. So go back to the webinar here.
Okay, remember up at the top where it's red and it says Stop Sharing?
Thank you.
Okay. There you go, and we're back to the slide.
Great, thanks. So I've just covered these pretty quickly. So I'm going to turn it over to just a conversation with our experts. These are folks who are working in the field every day, who are helping people like you every day, and they have, two of them are authors. Julie Page is an author on one of the books on the bookshelf, and promoting preservation awareness, and Jean-Louis was a contributor to the Image Permanence Institute Media Storage Quick Reference. So they have written books, and MJ's contributed to a lot of activities like that too. So they've written texts, and they do presentations all the time to groups, and are a great resource. And they have their favorite resources, and they'll share that with us. I was just going to start off with just giving them some warm-up questions to get us going. And Julie, one thing I know you've worked so much on is disaster planning. And when we had people register for this webinar, they were asking some questions about what they hoped that this would answer. And we had some questions about what resources are available to help with disaster plans. Can you answer that?
Sure. There are really some excellent resources for you either to improve an existing emergency plan that you have or to start, to write a basic plan. Resources as part of the bookshelf are the Emergency Response and Salvage Wheel. That's one of the key ones, and it could be that Kristen will be showing that to you along the way. It's one you want to have right at hand to find reliable information right when something happens. And something that's kind of a companion with it is the Field Guide to Emergency Response. This is a really compact yet detailed on the phases of response, and it also includes an excellent DVD covering salvage operations and demonstrating different salvage techniques. Now, you heard about the National Park Service Museum Handbook. Chapter 10 in that, so this is an online resource. You can, even if you don't have the bookshelf, you can take a look at it. Chapter 10 is focused on emergency planning, and as mentioned earlier, it's an excellent resource for all types of cultural heritage institutions. So take a look at that. Now, available for all of you, there's quite a bit more on the Guide to Online Resources. The entry is Prepare for and Respond to Emergencies. So you can take a look at that. There are over 30 resources listed that cover a variety of issues. One of my favorites is the Pocket Response Plan developed by the Council of State Archivists, which I've adapted for all kinds of libraries and archives. It's called the PREP. It's a very simple little double-sided template, and you can use it. I will add that link into chat in just a minute. And Northeast Document Conservation Center developed D-Plan, which is an online disaster planning tool that's comprehensive and especially useful for larger institutions. NEDCC also has a worksheet outlining what are the components of a disaster plan and key elements to include. So take a look at these, and I think you'll find some excellent guidance for starting or supplementing an emergency plan.
Thanks so much, Julie. That's great. And some of those resources, as you said, they're in the Guide to Online Resources, or we can make sure to make links to them if they're not already there. Jean-Louis, I was going to ask you, when people registered for the webinar, we also had a lot of questions about the storage of photographs and films and DVDs and DVDs, which the IPI Media Storage Quick Reference addresses. And I just wanted you to give us a little overview of that resource.
Okay. Well, first, I would say that it gave me an opportunity to mention that actually IPI celebrated its 25th anniversary this year, and if you look at the evolution of the place, basically, really the overarching story there is you start to study the stability of materials and media in the mid-'80s, and now IPI is focusing more and more, in fact, on the quality and how to manage the environment. So the MSQR really, because it's about storage, fit in this, and when it has been developed in 2004, basically, before this, if you want to know, okay, what kind of condition would be suitable for such and such media, recommendation usually were media specific, and the documentation and the answer to that question was very spread. It can be the international standards. It can be other publications. So there was a lot of information there who really was not available in a very concise and handy way for museum and caretakers and so forth. So this is the first thing we wanted to do is to provide the maximum information with the fewest words as possible. So you can look at this basically publication and look at what specific media require, and you can use the wheel to have those answers that we saw a little bit earlier, where you will be aware of the type of decay that are really of concern for this particular media, but doing so too and starting this conversation with museum and library who basically preserve one type of material. Nobody. So everybody has kind of mixed collection of things. So this is where we address and try to guide the people about the problem of what my collection really need in terms of environment, and we try to characterize and basically try to help the people answer three questions. Okay, what is the specific need of a media in particular? What is my mixed media collection need? Or also, the first, what my current storage, for example, is doing to my collections. So on the screen here, we have a table which is inside the guide, which is color-coded and so on. But we simplify the approach here by using simple words who mean something in terms of temperature, and define those four different storage, which is room temperature, this is where we are comfortable, and some cooler one, some cold one, and frozen one. And what you see here is basically the potential impact on the collection. So depending on what you have, it gives you a first glimpse to what your current storage is doing and in which direction you should go if you're planning to keep the thing for the long term. So there was nothing like that at the time, and addressing the mixed collection problem was not really approached in that time. So the other thing that you might find here interesting is also that in some cases the condition of the collection matters for some particular material, like acetate-based material or like nitrate-based material. So more and more here we try to really answer this question about the need of your collection. So it's up to you, the people who have this, who use it, to give us feedback in particular, but it's starting the conversation about storage, and it's more and more a current really concern, because once you know what kind of storage you need, and I will not answer to that right now, but if you're interested, we can talk about how do I get there? How do I implement my cold storage if I need one? How I manage my storage environment in a more sustainable way, etc., etc. So there is a lot of questions there that we could discuss, and I could give you some direction to help you with that.
Okay, thanks. Just quickly though, when you say frozen storage or cold storage, do you happen to, what are the temperatures you're talking about there?
Well, this is the frozen storage. It's easy to define because as soon as it's below the freezing point, 32,
below 32,
you are in frozen storage. And now, in the storage guide, you will see there is a little scale there, and we will help to define what is the range. Now, the storage doesn't change from cool to cold in a way at one particular particular degree, right? There's a kind of gradation there. And that is always a discussion, and, well, I need to know where to stop when I become cold after being cool, right?
Right.
And that is a tricky point, because in this kind of zone, they share the property of both of the storage, but there is some anchor points that we call, which are for cool, for example, is 54 Fahrenheit, okay? For cold is 40. So if you know roughly where you are, the closest to one of these temperature should define your storage and help you carry this evaluation. It's the idea. It's kind of tool. It's a quick little thing to, as I said, to start the conversation, define what you really need, in which direction you must go. You can see, looking at the chart here, that if you have everything, really the best compromise is some kind of cold storage. It would be something like, between 40 and just above the freezing point. And if you go closer to the freezing point, it would be even better for the chemical stability of the materials, and so on.
Right.
This is the way it's defined.
Thanks. Well, I know it's a big topic, and we don't have a lot of time to get into a lot of specifics. But just quickly, does this book or does something else that the Image Permanence Institute has developed, would that get into issues of, what you would put, what kind of housing these materials would need before you would put them in cold or frozen storage, how you interleaving, other things like that? Is that in this text, or is that in something else?
No, it's not in this one. There is some discussion in the storage guide for photographic color materials that IPI also published a number of years ago. This publication will be actually downloadable online because it's out of print. So there is a discussion. There is also other sources that I could mention. For example, you talk about the National Park Service.
Right.
And they made a DVD, basically how to implement cold storage and for photographic collections. So what they touch here, it's how you package the material. For example, if you use household freezer, because your collection is so small that you don't need a big vault, okay? So they give you a lot of practical tips to do it yourself and do the safer way. There is some other website. You can go also in the PMG website here, and there's an article that maybe it's in the topics, in the last topic, that Sarah Wagner wrote really about cost of various options to really implement cold storage. Cold storage thing is a kind of customized approach.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It can be the big vault, the multi-million vault.
Right.
if you are a Hollywood studio, right, type of collection, or it can be one household freezer. Okay.
Okay.
So just the difference require different handling and different packaging. The main thing is to protect the material from moisture in the freezer.
Okay, well, thanks for that. I was able to find that Park Service link, so I put that up in the chat, and and even maybe you and I can trade emails afterwards, and we can make sure that the Guide to Online Resources has all of those resources handy.
Okay.
That is something I'll mention, is that the Guide to Online Resources is something that Heritage Preservation helps IMLS maintain. So if as part of this conversation there's something you find that it's missing or that you like, you can feel free to email me, and we can make sure to add it to the resource. I was going to ask MJ a question. Jean-Louis referenced the issue of institutions struggling with multimedia collections. I mean, you have lots of different types of materials, and they have maybe different storage needs, and it's hard sometimes for a smaller institution with limited space and limited technology to deal with. And one thing in particular that's challenging, and we know people have asked questions about in the past, are are scrapbooks, and they might have photographs in them, and they might have paper and ticket stubs and any number of baseball cards, any number of things. MJ, can you give us a few resources that you like that can help people negotiate this really sort of challenging type of artifact?
Well, I think scrapbooks are they are multimedia, but the important thing with scrapbooks is the information that's in them, sometimes which is more important than the actual items themselves, that there's a chronology that's involved, and that first and foremost needs to be preserved. The simplest thing I always tell people is just a new box. Put them in a box, and that will provide good storage within the institution. And then if it's an item that becomes heavier, it's an item that is used frequently in your institution, then you can consider maybe going to some form of digitization so that the original doesn't get used as frequently. But certainly, good storage up front. It doesn't have to be high-tech, and, just a good archival box will certainly help. There are some good online articles about scrapbooks. There's a wonderful book that was done by the American Institute for Conservation Book and Paper Group called Preservation Options for Scrapbook and Album Formats, which is available on the AIC website. And there's also, a really good little section in Caring for Your Family Treasures, which is part of the bookshelf. Just talks about, again, that storage component, which is so important with scrapbooks, and leaving them in the format that they are, as opposed to taking them apart.
Thanks. That's great. I think sometimes I think people want to get in and do a little bit more than is probably best for an artifact. So just even
less is more.
Less is more.
Scrapbooks.
In this case. Yeah,
it really is.
And I was just able to post the link for that AIC publication, and so that's now I'm also going to. You sent me a few other links, and we're going to make sure to get that on the Guide to Online Resources. I think a lot are there, but we'll just make sure that they're all referenced. And then this is the Caring for Your Family Treasures that Heritage Preservation published. Some other simple type of task like that. Julie or MJ, do you want to chime in on other resources that you like? That
well, I think one of the good resources for people is if they haven't had a CAP survey, which is the Conservation Assessment Program, is to get themselves a good survey as a starting point. It's sort of a twofer in that you end up with a consultant, a conservator coming to your institution to carry out a survey for you, and then you have a relationship there that you can ask questions of as you go along. I think it's, most CAP surveyors are more than happy to stay in contact with the institutions that they work with and can make further references. Another area would be, again, the American Institute for Conservation does have a select conservator option, and you can call these people in your area. The meter's not going to be running if you just call to ask a simple question, and it's a good way to, maybe they know of some other things that are going on in your area that you can be a part of. Certainly another would be like your state historical society, or for archives, every state has a State Historical Records Advisory Board, better known as a SHRAB, and there are people on those boards that are usually pulled from cultural institutions. And if you feel that you need some additional help and suggestions, or even want to qualify something that you've heard, they would be good resources.
Right.
So I would just jump and try to talk about the identification of materials. Somebody asked that question because on the tables that we looked a little bit earlier from the MSQR, where you have the various type of media, and sometimes film you see nitrate and acetate and so on. So also in the guide, you and in particular in that reel, there is two sides on the reel, and with only one side, a little bit earlier, will give you information about how to preserve. But the other side gives you some information about the chronology and the nature of the plastic support of those materials. So often, this is the other side of this wheel, often one of the most efficient way to identify when you don't know is looking at when that material has been produced, and so this should in many ways help to identify if you don't know. For example, if you talk about audio tape, magnetic tape, so there will be only a period in the 50s where some quarter-inch tape were on acetate and everything else is on polyester. Once you know that, you can read that particular table. If you talk about, home movies, a small format, for example, 16 and smaller, there was never nitrate product, nitrate-based producer there. So all those tips help you to really identify the materials. It's kind of crucial because, as you can see, some are more stable than others. As you look into the collection and you see some decay appearing, and when you have this experience, this first-hand experience, those materials decay in a certain way, and you learn to identify. Basically, that is the only advantage of decay, the nature of the material, by looking at the type of degradation you see. So that's come over time. But the main role here, I think, is when you provide this colder and colder temperature, basically you will stabilize those plastic, no matter what they are. And even the polyester, it's very stable, doesn't need maybe so-called temperature. Well, you will not harm by putting and keeping it in cold temperature. So that is the idea. So the idea will be and is a big issue now, probably for the new digital print materials, and because there is so many different technology, and they will be and they are basically susceptible to different stressors, that it become very key to be able to identify them. So this is another topic that IPI is working on, and to keep up with this, you can go to the Image Permanence Institute website, and in that one you have a particular website which is dp3project.org. I think. So this will give you insight about those digital material, about the technology, the problems they can encounter, and as research is developing and data is developed, it will also keep you up to date about how to better handle and what to pay attention to. Some of the technology are very, for example, susceptible to abrasion, others are not, and some are susceptible to ozone, others are not. So this will be a resource to probably add in the online guide too.
And so when you say digital print, give us like a few examples of what that includes.
Well, for example, inkjet, inkjet print, but the inkjet print doesn't mean much because it's a big family there, right?
Right.
So, sometimes the substrate it's with a binder, and sometimes it's a porous materials,
right?
Which is like a mineral basically in the ink. So there's a lot of different technologies. So if you go to the website, you will have. Okay, I don't have it here, but
I just changed. Yeah, just shared that link.
You put the link. So you will have a first discussion about what is out there, and and even so, it's a changing technology because the ink may change and so on and so on.
Yeah,
it's an evolving technology, but there is a few family that it's important to learn about it, and because, for example, if the ink is on the top of the materials without any protection of a binder, like on porous substrate, that is very susceptible to abrasion. So more and more, probably the caretaker will have to be even get the information about the material when they get it, or be able to identify and handle, for example, some more carefully, put in different sleeve, etc., etc. So there is a lot of data which is has been developed, but there is a lot more to develop to define some really strong guidelines for the collections.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just want to reiterate that I do have the IPI Media Storage quick reference in front of me. And I'm sorry I don't have a picture on the other side of the wheel, but it is extremely easy to use. You have all the years, and then you just slide it around depending on the type of film, motion picture film, X-ray film, still photographs, etc. And you very quickly can see what kind of material you're probably dealing with based on the age of the photograph. So I recommend it. I don't think it's available in your online format, right? It's just the hard copy.
Not the wheel.
So I just shared the. If you haven't gotten the bookshelf, I just shared the link on how, if you want to order it, you might find that deal.
I don't know. It could be possible, but it's kind of a tricky thing to do.
It is. Well, it's nice. That wheel is a really nice, nice format. I wanted to, Julie Page, are you still there? I wanted to ask you to give us a little overview of the Promoting Preservation Awareness in Libraries.
Sure. Yep. This book includes about 35 case studies to raise preservation awareness for all kinds of libraries, special collections, etc. You can get ideas for educating both staff and library users, ideas for reaching young children who are, in fact, of course, the future users of our colleges and universities and archives and special collections, as well as ideas to engage young adults and adults. So the book helps with how to create preservation education programs as well as how to evaluate them. So if you're looking for outreach activities for preservation education, I'd highly recommend that you start here. What you're seeing on the screen is a companion website. This book came out in 1997, and Jeannie Drews and I, who were co-editors, encouraged the publisher to provide updated information on the appendices. So, again, if you don't know the book, you can still look at this website and see updated links, a lot of web information. Obviously, a lot's come out since 1997. But the basic information of the book is very solid and still very relevant today. One thing I wanted to mention, too, Kristen, if I could, is in talking about outreach, is considering doing some activities in relation to the annual Preservation Week that will be coming up in April. It's April 24th through 30th this next year. This has been an effort by the American Library Association and others. And it really is an opportunity to focus on your collections and preservation within your community. And some ideas are offered there on the screen. I also thought an example in if you have someone who's more of a media expert on your staff, or you can use some of the bookshelf resources. Maybe you can give a talk on media preservation and some of the things Jean-Louis has been sharing with us so that the public know how to take care of and store media in their home collections as well. The Library of Congress as well as the IPI websites obviously are good resources for this information. Maybe you have some staff or volunteers who repair your circulating collections. Bring them out of the back room, which is usually where they are, and show the public what you do to take care of their community's collection. This would also be a good opportunity to display your bookshelf for the public to review and to allow them to ask questions. They may have things like, what should I do if I have a wet book? Or how can I take care of a favorite book from my childhood? I think encouraging them to think of the libraries as resources for preservation of their own collections is really important. So I encourage you to look on the the American Library Association website, the link that's shown there. There'll be quite a bit more. There are examples from this last year's Preservation Week, as well as new postings as there are new options and new ideas across the country for celebrating Preservation Awareness Week this next April.
Thanks so much, Julie. MJ, I was going to toss a question to you. And again, we don't want to get into too many specific how-to questions. We're really trying to just focus on what resources are helpful. But you're up in Vermont, and you've worked with a lot of small museums and historical societies and archives that are in government buildings and whatnot. And I'm sure you've run into the fact that not many places have year-round heat in their buildings. Is that right?
That is very true. Yeah.
So is that the same thing as Jean-Louis' cold storage? And if not, why not? And what are some ways people can sort of tackle just improving storage conditions in general?
Well, it's been interesting in working with the small institutions in Vermont, and I would say at least half of them don't have a furnace. They might be just buildings that are opened during the summer. And if they do have a furnace, they usually don't use it in the winter. Or they would turn it on sporadically for, a meeting or something like that, which is not a great idea. We kind of encourage them to go somewhere else. But, cold is not a bad thing. And it's amazing how in good condition many of the collections are that go through this type of life cycle. And what we try to do is to help them prepare these collections, again, working with good archival boxes and preventative care, more or less, making sure things are organized and in boxes and tissue, and as they go into the freeze cycle, it's usually a gradual situation, so we don't have necessarily the buildup of frost that you would have when you plunge something into a freezer, which is more dramatic. It gradually ramps down through the fall and gradually comes back up in the spring. So the collections actually do quite well under those conditions that, you don't necessarily need things to be at 68 degrees, 55% relative humidity to have them have quite a good life cycle itself.
But I see someone's wondering about a cool basement, but that also happens.
Well, it's got to be cool and dry. I mean, that's
the caveat.
That is the big caveat. You can have a science project in a heartbeat before you know it if you put, especially collections that are more organic in nature as opposed to inorganics. Some of the small museums, who are just desperate for storage space, I will recommend that they put perhaps maybe more of their glass and ceramics and, stone and things like that can go into the cooler, slightly more damp basement area, if that's the only option they have, and then put things that need a drier, cooler climate in the winter. They're on maybe the second floor of a historic house museum. Location. So that goes to sort of understanding the materials that your artifacts are composed of and what types of climates they're most susceptible to.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, what you said is a perfect example. Really underscores the fact you need to know the material, and the better you know your storage, your environment, the better you are, and you will do the right choice for the collection. So I saw that in your online guide you had this software Store Live.
Right.
Who can demonstrate this idea, basically, exactly what was described, and how, depending if you put in the attic or in the basement, what you get.
Right. Thanks. I'm going to share that link right now. It's
right.
It's a really, especially if you've got a board or other people you're trying to help convince that you need to improve the storage at your collections institution, this is a great tool to use. I'm just linking it now.
Well, the IPI's new the newer preservation monitors are they are just amazing, and as one of my colleagues says, it's pretty much like getting a conservator in a can. The amount of software support, and it's free online, which is great. These small institutions don't have to maintain the software or store the data, because I've had two instances now where we had set up monitoring programs. There was a change in staff, computers were updated, and all the data was lost. So with the new preservation monitors, you can get a sense of what's going on in your spaces. Then you can decide what collections will best live in those areas. So it's I think they're about $350 a piece. It'll be the best $350 a small institution can buy.
Okay, you said, huh? I didn't say anything.
It's true. They're fabulous. And the other thing I like about them is that they're password protected. The information on the IPI website where your data is stored. And I have one client now who is downloading her weekly readings. She's given me the password. I can go online and check the information, and then she and I can talk about it. So D-Plan also, to jump a little bit, has that same component that's password protected, but you can get yourself a consultant or a colleague or somebody who can look at your information online and give you help with interpretation.
Great.
Yeah, this is also something which is in the online guide, basically. If you go to environment management, you have the link and a discussion and so on about the IPI system, the PM2 that we talk, which is associated with the software, really to understand what is going on. But the ultimate goal here, and I'm jumping here to a current project, is really, yes, to document, yes, to understand, but to improve the environment and to put the right object in the right environment. But also now there is one more step here, which is doing all of this in the most sustainable way that is possible. So there is, for those who are interested in this, there is also a website. I don't know, Kristen, if you have it, but it's www.ipisustainability.org, and what you will find there, it's certainly information about this kind of philosophy, but also I know it's a series of, can I make a plug here? A webinar
Sure.
also. I think it will be something like 9 or 10 webinar starting. The first one is next week, actually. And the idea is really to use this system to your advantage and also customize the response to your institution, your problem, and so on and so on. So the first step is certainly to monitor what you have, and it's certainly not only for big institutions. It's also for small places, and in many ways, this is the ones who struggle the most. So that it would be a key. But this is basically the new frontier there. And once you have the technology, you have to teach the people how to use it and to go further with environment management, basically.
Right.
So
save money and the environment.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, when we are talking about Vermont and the environment in which the collection were stored, okay, and it's cold in the winter, and the environment changes, and probably it changes in the houses where there is no furnace and so on. Now the big question is, what's the material, what the object are really feeling? Do they change what is happening outside the house? The answer is no, okay? That will depend on the structure of the building or how much material there is. So there is here again a lot of knowledge to really collect, to really understand what is happening at the object level in a way.
Right.
And in many ways it's not she said, oh, those materials, they are mostly in good condition, or many are in good condition, and if you would show the profile who goes up and down of the temperature to somebody who all his life thought, I want a flat line
right
with my temperature, he would not believe you. But or with the humidity, he would not believe you that those materials but in fact, they don't experience all those changes. So that give also some more opportunity to manage when you have an HVAC system, to manage differently.
Right.
And eventually to create some changes that will not harm the object and make you save money, basically.
So Jean-Louis, we had a question on how a PM is different than a hobo monitor. Is it just a brief? I don't want to go too far into it, but is there a brief?
Right. Well, what is different? The PM2, it's I see the big difference is the calibration, the way they are calibrated. Every single unit, the nature of the sensor, but every single unit is calibrated through a cycle. We go from low dry condition to humid condition to dry again, and every level of humidity, you give some measurement, and it's 5 points basically. So this is a very, very high degree of accuracy for those particular particular unit. So we spend a lot of attention and a lot of time to do this. The feature that he has, he has a display will show you the level of temperature and humidity. He also, you download the data with a USB key, and then you go to your computer and download. But the key, the PM2 has the software that we were talking a little bit before, so it's really not only the data logger, but this is a whole system. It's also the software where you can download your data. The data are stored on a server, which is RIT. It will be always there. You can access anytime. You can have a limited number of files there, etc., etc. So it's more than the data logger itself, I would say.
Right. So you get the whole software.
It's very accurate.
Yeah.
And
I think, Kristen, one of the biggest things that I've found for the small institutions with the PEMs is, or the hobos were, as and Jean-Louis, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were sort of designed for the frozen food industry to monitor sort of a particular sort of set point of information, and the software that comes with them only allows you to download a month, so that if you want to look at a whole year, you have to go back and knit all that data together. It's really time consuming.
Sure.
These are the hobos you're referring to.
The hobos, whereas the PM just automatically adds it all in. You get great graphs, you get analysis, and it's all based on museum standards, whereas the hobos and their graph that they present is really more for just a snapshot in time.
Right.
Yeah, it's true that the history of the PM came from, as I said, studying the materials, how is decay, then the environment is important. We want to track it, we want to understand. So it has been created to really serve the purpose of preservation.
Right.
And I think even if you forgot about it, but you should not forget about it, I think it will store 10 years of data.
Wow, that's great.
So that is the thing. Of course, to make a good assessment, you need at least 1 year, because you want to know what is happening through the years.
Yeah, right.
Depending where you are, and if I can just add something in this sustainable project, IPI is working with 5 different institutions who are located in the 5 regions, Northeast, Southeast, and so on, because the question becomes, how can I take advantage also of my local climate?
Right.
How my climate will change, limit, or actually extend what I can do. So that is why, and really the purpose of this is, yes, to train people and also develop some methodology to learn how to do things and how to save energy and how to save money that we can use for changing the housing or whatever.
Right, great. Good.
That's the basic idea.
Okay, well, so we'll be looking for at the Image Permanence Institute website to look for more references coming out about sustainability, and we'll be adding those to the Guide to Online Resources and publicizing them as they become available, and also with the webinars coming up. I wanted to just change directions a little bit. Saw several questions about materials that either you'd store collections in. Someone asked about Xerox paper, etc. And I know when I get in the mail or go to conferences and I see storage or supply catalogs from the different archival companies, they will often have good information in them. And I was going to ask the three of you as experts, is that, in general, is that a good place for people to read up about different types of materials and to learn about what's safe to use with collections? Do you like the information that you see in archival storage catalogs?
Yeah, I think for the most part they're right on, and my experience has been with sort of the I guess you would call them the big three: University Products, Gaylord, Light Impressions. They've always worked very closely with the conservation community, and probably 95% of their items are things that we would use. I know in there's a slight difference in approach to materials between libraries, archives, and fine art. Let's say there's some things that are considered more that you would do with a library collection, a circulating collection, that you certainly wouldn't do with fine art. But I think their materials are good quality, well vetted. And they also have good customer service, and you can call and ask lots of questions of them. And the last I knew, Gaylord had somebody actually that they could call, and if you had a particular type of collection you wanted to store, they could give you suggestions on materials, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, from our hand, I think I could say that they observe what is happening and what kind of research is going on and so on, and try to integrate in their product or how they explain things.
Right.
Many of those also contract us, for example, sometimes to test some materials. Like the best example is the photography activity test, where you see them mention on the catalog, okay, this box of this paper passed the photography activity test, which means, okay, it's compatible to keep photographic material in them. So I think they certainly do a good job, and I'm sure they were, or maybe they still are, some part of the board, actually. This is up to the point they are interested in what is going on.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I know photographic activity test is mentioned in the chat, and I know, and I think it was Gaylord, but I know I've seen in the catalogs they also do a good job describing what they mean by those different terms, and so that's also a quick place for you to learn about them. I was going to also ask the panel, in general, we were saying earlier, you can put into Google, care of photographs and take your chances. And we try to do our best, getting some good hard copy resources out on the bookshelf and finding the best online resources on and putting that on the website. But, can't promise to be 100% thorough. So what are some ways that the audience can help kind of evaluate information that they might find, especially online? Some ways that they might evaluate that as being a credible or non-credible resource.
Well,
I would say look for respected sources such as Library of Congress, National Park Service, Heritage Preservation, the Smithsonian, those that are well known, and then turn to professional association websites such as Society of American Archivists, American Institute for Conservation, American Association of Museums, etc. Those would be reliable. And the resources provided by regional preservation and conservation centers. These would include one we've looked at before, Northeast Document Conservation Center, NEDCC, the Conservation Center for Art and Historic Artifacts in Philadelphia. And one of my favorites for disaster response documents is the Minnesota Historical Society. So sometimes it'll be state or local links. So those would be some. I'll put a couple of links into the chat as well.
Yeah, I just put the RAP website into the chat too.
Yeah, we can add the Balboa Conservation Center too in San Diego, right?
Right. Yes, that's one of the members of the Regional Alliance for Preservation, which includes many of the outreach and conservation centers throughout the U.S.
Great, and I want to put in the link about AIC's little brochures and tip sheets.
Right. also for audiovisual material, there is one discussion list which is kind of very active, is the Association of Moving Image Archivists.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Where, so I think it's
AMIA.org.
AMIAnet.org is the website, and then AMIA-L, the discussion list. So there is a lot of discussion there, and it's a good test. It's a good run test, and people really help each other.
Yeah, thanks. They are a really good and active group, and it can be a lot to, especially if you have a collection. You're a small institution, and you have a collection of a lot of different things, and then you have some moving image film or video, and you're just overwhelmed. The Association of Moving Image Archivists is a great resource. I'm going to put that up in the chat, too.
I'm looking at the question we have here. But we don't want to go into how to, you said, but just just quick. There are several questions about using freezers here, and we already mentioned this DVD of the National Park Service, right? Will really answer to that question, and basically to store those material in freezers they use and demonstrate and show how to do it, aluminum foil materials.
Right, they have cold storage packing. I'm just looking at their site now.
Right.
How to do it in upright freezers and vaults.
Right. Right. So that's well. The other thing, there is some of the suppliers, conservation suppliers, who sell kits.
Okay, good to know.
Where you don't have to do it yourself, but you are kind of limited in terms of size and so on. So, but it exists. You can always adapt to those things. The principle that the people have to keep in mind is those freezers don't control humidity, so you need to wrap to seal the materials to avoid moisture to go into the materials.
Right.
This is the basic idea. And then somebody was talking about toast cycles that this freezer are designed with, basically. So, because if we talk about the frost-free freezers, once a day, something like that, the temperature is going just above the freezing point, next to the coil, just to make the ice melt. But in fact, if you have a freezer which is packed with stuff, the temperature will never get there because you have such a thermal mass there that the temperature will never get to above the freezing point. So there is some cycle of temperature, but for everything which is recommended to freeze, those vulnerable and stable, chemically unstable materials, this temperature change will not harm the material because they don't contract and expand significantly. So I think this it's safe to do.
Okay. Well, thanks.
So this is too.
Great. Well, there have been a lot of good questions and a lot more than hard to get into and even into some detail, but it does lead me into something that Nancy mentioned earlier, which is that Heritage Preservation, ASLH, and IMLS are investigating our options for continuing these conversations, having like live chats with conservators or sharing podcasts or other types of things in an online community. And I was just going to poll the group here to say, is that something we asked you when you registered, and you might not have understood exactly what we meant or what we were talking about, but now that you have been on a webinar, you've had a chance to chat with each other, is this something you think you might be interested in? Looks like a pretty good group. Then Susan's going to put up the next one, which is just to give us a little idea of where you might be getting information now, and like what sorts of things might we utilize if we build an online community. So we're actively investigating it, and I think pretty soon, right in the new year, we will be sending you out more information and maybe doing a little bit of a survey to get some specific feedback on things we might do.
Kristen, I also want to mention that I put up a link for the evaluation, and if that is not opening in a different browser window for you all, there is a direct link there. The Zoomerang link will take you to an evaluation for today's session.
That's great. Thanks for doing that. Would you mind quickly in the chat, everyone, who's said other, so your other methods for professional development or networking? And I'm thinking they're just of like online methods. Do you mind if you just don't mind putting that answer in the chat, then we can get that in our log and think about that. I know most people try to go to face-to-face meetings when they can. We found that people have liked the webinar series, that like the convenience of being able to log on from their desk. So it looks like other webinars and online classes are mainly the way. So great. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks to our experts for their information. And as we mentioned earlier, this whole webinar will be archived, so all of our chat will be archived. Is that correct, Susan?
Yeah. When they watch the archive, they can follow through that.
Yep. And so you can see all of the links we might have mentioned. There are a lot of links in the PowerPoint that will also, when you view the PowerPoint in the archive, those are hyperlinked, and you can go to those. And
the slides from the PowerPoint will be available just as slides as well.
That's terrific. Thanks. And then hopefully now you're a little more familiar with the Guide to Online Resources, and we continue to update that. So, and of course, Heritage Preservation will be happy to answer any questions if you're having a hard time putting your fingers on something. But hopefully soon we'll be together in the online community, and that'll be a great place to toss out questions and get feedback.
And Kristen, I'm also more than welcome. People can email me a question. I'm happy to answer questions about particular material or the way to store something or whatever. This is MJ, by the way. So that they should feel comfortable in contacting us. Or contacting me for sure. That's fine.
Okay. Thanks so much, MJ.
Sure.
Yeah, same for us at IPI. Okay. This is what we do, basically.
Yeah. You're good, really good at it. So, and I know Julie out in California. If you're in California and you don't have a disaster plan, and you don't know Julie, get to know her.
Yeah, or all of the kind of western region. I just put my email address in there, and I don't know if you already have or others, but anyway, they're now preserved for posterity.
Okay, great. Good. Well, thanks.
But at what temperature?
Yeah, right. Yeah, don't ask that question.
Not in San Diego.
Right, not in San Diego. Good. Well, thanks to everyone for your time, and
thank you.
We'll hopefully stay in touch.